Today we are talking to Violet, who's leading Skin Gourmet, a cosmetics startup based out of Ghana. It's rare to see a cosmetics startup come out of Ghana because most of the time it is the raw ingredients that come up from Ghana. But I think Violet has leveraged the natural resources as well as the natural subject matter expertise that is there since long time in Ghana. The remarkable fact about Violet is that it's very difficult to differentiate between who is Violet and what is Skin Gourmet, because the authenticity is what has been driving Skin Gourmet to its next step, and the authenticity is fueled by Violet. I think that's a benchmark that Violet strictly maintains, but it's also very interesting because CEOs have a lot of things in their mind: it's scalability, it's repeatability, it's sustainability, so on and so forth. But I think all of those are covered in the umbrella term of authenticity and being true to your philosophy. So let's talk more with her. Let me first begin with your origin story. Why did you think of Skin Gourmet, and what's the origin story behind it? Of course, I can understand the health aspect, the sustainability aspect, but in general, what was that event that triggered this idea in your mind, and why did you think of pursuing it?
Okay, so I think for a lot of people, when they're talking about their company or the unique selling point of the company, they focus more on the product itself. But for me, that was not why I started. I started because I think I consider myself to be a privileged Ghanaian in every aspect, because I got to go to school outside, and I got to study and meet so many people. I got to travel. But when I came back to Ghana, is when it hit me, the disparity between Ghanaians, like the gap between classes, especially from lower class to middle class to higher class. And I just really, really, really wanted to help, but I couldn't find any sustainable solution using a salary. And so I kind of just put that in the back of my mind. And then in 2014, I had an issue with my lip, where due to the Hamatan season, it got really dry and it was not healing. I mean, nothing was. And the funny thing with me is, I have like spiritually, right? I have I think I have a pretty close relationship with God. So when something doesn't happen right for me, I'm just like, this is something is wrong here. And then I just went, okay, let me try and resolve this issue. And I found out that from a friend of mine, says use shea butter. And this is it's kind of interesting because I'm Ghanaian. I should know what shea butter is. But even though we know what shea butter is, it's not something that we really regard as something that is higher end or something that is a luxury product. So my friends like use shea butter, and I'm like, shea butter. Anyway, I used the shea butter, and within 3 days, no scarring, nothing. And I was like, oh my God. Like, this is amazing. I have to tell the whole world about it. I'm going to create the best body butter the world has ever seen. And I just started with absolutely no research. And it was amazing because I still did not make the connection that this business would actually be able to help me, help our Ghanaian society, until I hired my first staff. And then I realized that if I'm able to cultivate and harness our Ghanaian resources and create a high-end finished product that will be good for export, I could end up creating decent jobs and, of course, boost economic growth. And that's actually the whole serve Skin Gourmet. Now, why is it edible? Again, when it goes back to looking at Ghana's natural resources and understanding our own skincare, shea butter is something that we've been using for a long time, but a lot of Ghanaians, we've kind of forgotten the essence of it. But as I did my sourcing, I had to visit these local communities, I realized that, wait, they're they're actually eating the skincare, and then that blew my mind, and I was like, wonder why. And I realized it's for several reasons. Number one, those areas don't even have any way to preserve. There's no fridges, there's no freezers, right? So you have to have a sort of food or skincare that
Yeah.
does not need much preservation unless you're using a traditional technique. And then also, it's very simple. Whatever you put on your skin, it's going to end up inside your body. So if you don't want to eat it,
Yeah.
why would you put it on your skin? And my mind was like blown. And I just decided, let's keep the traditional aspect of what we have as skincare. Let me try and find a way to preserve that culture, but at the same time, let's add value to make it more innovative.
Got it. Got it. I think that makes sense, but that raises a couple of questions for me. I mean, you did talk about on your website that there are no preservatives, there are no added chemicals, so on and so forth, no paraben. But then, how do you increase the shelf life? I can see a lot of shelf behind you.
Yes, that's the thing, right? And that's I sort of went back to you and said to you that our local communities here. I don't know if you know much about Africa. We live in very hot, humid places, and we have no fridges or freezers. So
Ah,
traditionally, we have techniques that preserve it, and that's in how it's manufactured. And that's the secret sauce. So even though it's a butter and it's food grade, it lasts for 3 years. But to tell you the truth, some of our
wow,
products don't even expire. Like for example, black soap, it never expires. Our honey, it
wow,
never expires. Oils like moringa oil, it takes 10 years to expire if you store it the right way. So because
wow.
of, I guess, our where we were living, we found ways to preserve it. And as we're talking about growing globally and figuring out how to make great skincare lines, we've decided to put in these chemicals that the consumer doesn't need, right? So the preservative you're putting in, nobody's paying you for that. The emollient,
Yes,
nobody's paying you for that. You're paying for that to increase the shelf life. But this is a
yes.
community that's already figured out how to do it. It's just a matter of harnessing that traditional.
But has this method of preservation gave you any backlash from some major retail chains? I mean, if you tried talking to them, did they question on no? I mean, that's a good thing, right?
No,
I
because
mean,
what we do is we love to work with people to reduce their risk, right? So we believe in people over profit. And that means that if I'm working with you, I have to think in the long term, like, how can I make sure that you benefit from the business? So even if you come to me like, I'm worried about the shelf life, or I don't think it will last 3 years, I'll tell you that, okay, we have, for example, an exchange policy of 6 months. If the product is not moving within 6 months, I'll exchange it for you for something that would move in 6 months. But if a consumer
wow.
buys a product from us and says to us that, oh, Violet, I have had this product maybe in my fridge for 3 years and I feel like it's gone off, I will exchange it for you. But in doing business for 10 years, I've never had that complaint. Not once.
Wow. That's impressive. That's very, very impressive, Violet. So when I hear more about Skin Gourmet, the more I hear about it, one thing that comes out is it's highly personalized, highly customized. You guys are hand assembling a lot of stuff at your uh, startup. Now, how does that translate into to going big, right? Because I mean,
Yes,
uh,
yes. So that's a question that I've been dealing with a lot because I was part of Africa's Business Heroes, and one thing I love about that competition is they really push you to figure out how do we make it and how we're able to scale. Well, the thing is, the handmade aspect is not at the end of the value chain; it's at when we source. So the point is we're trying to impact the communities we source from. That's why people ask us that, why do you have so many different products? Well, when we find a product or a raw ingredient in a part of Ghana that a local community makes, we find a way to innovate that in order to create demand so that that community can have jobs, that community can have dignity, that community can have a boost in economics. But that means that we have to work with people at the grassroots level. So we end up getting the source material pre-processed by hand. Then it comes to our factory, and some of it is done by hand, and some of it is done by machinery. As we're growing, we're putting more technology in the further end of it, and that's for several reasons: for certification reasons, for health and safety reasons, and also just to pump up the production to make it a bit faster. But the handmade process has to be part of it because that's how we're able to continue to allow the communities to be part of the process. So the hand process is how we're able to ensure that the value chain is inclusive and we're able to allow the communities to take part. The long term plan, of course, is that again, partnership and collaboration is everything. So even though we are creating a product for the consumer, what we are creating is we're creating something of value that the consumer will enjoy because they're getting their problem solved, but it's solving the bigger problem of Ghana's economics, the fact that Ghana doesn't have jobs, the fact that people are not skilled. So even though now the technology is on the other end of the value chain, slowly we're going to end up putting it through vertical integration. But we're not going to lose completely the handmade part because that also increases the value of the product and allows us to ensure that our Ghanaian technique is still embedded in it. I hope I answered
Understood.
your question.
Yeah, yeah, you did. You did. And I think that brings me to an adjacent question, and which is
Hello?
the raw materials. I
Hello?
mean, most of it is wild, natural, sourced from Ghana. And when I look at raw materials and when I hear about Ghana, I mean, chocolate sinks in my mind. I mean, because I mean, most of the cocoa powder is actually sourced from Ghana. Now,
Yeah.
one of the things, yeah, that actually comes into my mind is that a lot of giants who are into confectionery business and eatables, they are trying to grow lab-based proteins which are extracted out of cocoa
Mm-hmm.
because of the climate change and
Mm-hmm.
because of the conditions, climate conditions in Ghana.
Yeah.
Now, if I translate,
Yeah.
you have so many raw materials, raw products which are
Yes.
sourced locally. But when you grow
Mm-hmm.
big, again, I mean, that also is a scalability problem. Is there a future plan for that? I
Yeah,
mean, so,
definitely.
or is that not a
Definitely.
problem at all? Yeah.
No, 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 definitely. That's something that we're always talking. That's why we champion sustainability. So when we talk about vertical integration, we're doing the vertical integration not just to be able to get lower prices at the end of the day by reducing our cost, but we also have to educate the communities we work with to understand that this is your livelihood. So the way that you are planting, the way that you are treating your crops, the way that you're treating your environment, but this is something that takes education. But what we found is
Yes.
that even though you want to grow your proteins in the lab, the consumer, when we look at world trends, people care about impact. So they're more concerned
Yeah.
and they'll be more interested in not buying something that's synthetically grown. They would want something that is actually from nature, but know that in
Mhm.
them purchasing it, they're impacting the community and impacting their livelihood. So it's not something that we feel like we're going to get done in the next 2 years. No, this is the long range plan, but it's to ensure that
Yeah.
we put in processes that will preserve the environment, not just do the shortcut of, oh, let's just do it in the lab. No, let's just grow it on trees and treat the environment properly and have proper soil. Those type of things I think are important. And that's why like we're really passionate about our job because as much as it's great to be beautiful and create a high end consumer item, it's more beautiful when you put it on and you realize that this thing that I'm investing in is impacting so many different lives, not just the lives, but the environment as a whole. And I'm not like degrading anything. In me becoming beautiful, I'm actually also making other people's lives beautiful as well.
That's a very good philosophy and a vision to back the business. But also, I mean, when I hear you, I also see a lot of courage because when you look at the sustainability aspect and when I look at the business and the profit aspect, so
Yes.
you can make it more repeatable, if you can kill the lot of variables that are associated, so for example preserving the culture,
Exactly.
preserving
Mm-hmm.
the raw materials and all those kind of things, the business becomes simple. But at the same time your vision is also sustainability and promoting Ghana's culture, growing its economy. So I think you have taken a very courageous initiative. I mean, that's what I meant when I said, Violet, you are very
Courageous is a
courageous.
very good word. Courageous is a very good word, yes. But the point is of the matter is I feel like entrepreneurship is extremely difficult. And for me, my motivation was never I'm going to make the most money. I like again because of my background. I feel like if you receive a lot, you must give a lot back even more than you have received. So therefore, it's not. And also, it's funny how I think life works. I guess karma, or what other people would call it. But if you give people something valuable that they think that they got more than you, they keep coming back. So as much as you're putting people over profits, you become profitable because people see the value they're getting from it. And so
Yes.
even though yes, it is the more courageous view because there's going to be a lot of heartache, there's going to be a lot of betrayal, there's going to be a lot of people who don't have the same vision as you. But I feel like if you
Yeah.
stick with it, the impact that you make eventually will give you that traction and credence. Yeah. So essentially what I was saying is for me, the way entrepreneurship is so when I tell you difficult, what gets me out of bed is not a fat bank account, but it's knowing that in my life, I did something with it that made other people's life easier. And I feel like I owe that to my country. So even though, yes, you said it's courageous, I feel like there's nobody better built for it because I'm a little crazy like that. And it's something I actually really enjoy.
I think, I mean, you will find like-minded people who have been very, very successful in the world. Musk being one of them. So,
Oh, I hope so.
yeah, yeah. But you did mention a phrase. You stuck with it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
no, I mean, you are a very positive person. You. I don't believe this might be the right question, but I wanted to ask you. I mean, you have been in the business for 10 years.
Yeah.
Was there a time when you thought, I mean, this is it? It's too much hard work. It's
Yes.
not working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Like so I think and this was you see this is why I love what I do, right? Because there's I told you like I really am a firm believer in God and there's a reason why. There's this particular phrase he says where it's like if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain.
Uh,
You know what I realized? That mountain is us. Like we are that mountain. And I mean that when I give you the example of the years I wanted to give up, it was because I had this feeling of thinking number one, I had made it, like I'd gotten to a particular level. And then there is an arrogance or a pride that comes in and a self-right. And the funny thing is, your business tends to reflect who you are. This is
Yes.
my experience because I only have one business. And what I found was I then started to almost resent the business because I said, it doesn't look like me. This is not me. This
Wow.
is not what I'm building. But when I really sat down, I said to myself, no, let's be honest. What you don't like is you. You're looking at you. You think that you have made it, and that arrogance and that pride and that self-righteousness is seeping into the culture of your business. And so that thing that makes you no longer want to hold on, or that resentment you're feeling, is because you have put that into your organization. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with, because as you grow and you mature, you reach certain levels where you think you're doing better. And it only takes something special to really dig in deep to realize that no, I need to deal with now this other mountain. And that was that, where I had to sit there back and actually look at the company and say, no, I am nowhere, because it looks like me. It looks like an arrogant, self-righteous, and unauthentic brand. And again, at the same time, looking at that and feeling like giving up is what also gave me the motivation to say, nah, it means we're not done. And now we actually have to do the harder work, which is to actually be what you say. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing about building a business, because when you decide to be like, because everyone does marketing, right? It's all
Yeah.
marketing, like, oh, we are sustainable, oh, we empower people. No, 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 no. If you really want to do it, that's what the consumer buys, because the consumer
Yes.
is not stupid. The consumer will figure out if you're lying. And so you always
Yes.
have to dig deep to the foundation. Are you doing things the right way? Are you following the proper rules? And first and foremost, are you exactly what you say? And is everybody in your organization able to do that? And
Yeah.
again, people are not stupid. So the first thing you need to do is you have to change yourself. And I think that was what's so crushing for me, because you get so high and you realize that actually I'm nothing. Let me start again. And at the same time, it gets exciting, because as you change and you see the company change, it's even more exciting. So yes, I'm even looking forward, because I'm sure that later on I will feel like that again and I have to basically rebirth myself.
Yes. It is going to repeat, and
Yeah.
but I think, I mean, the overall experience, however it is with me of talking to people, I think you're a natural leader in terms of building businesses and leading businesses, because I think there are some vision, there are some values that you have to stick with it
Yes.
without compromising it, right? And if,
Yes.
if you have
Mm-hmm.
stuck with it for 10 years, I think, I mean, you're doing a great job. And second point I realized is you are making me self-reflect. That's not a good feeling.
No, but that's good. We should all make ourselves reflect. And that's the beautiful part about business. I always say that your motive must be right, right? Because there's some people, they can do several, but that's a different kind of person, right? And people are different. But as I've done this business, as I'm looking to build this business, I feel like this business is building me. And so I'm really committed, especially to that part of the business people call branding. And I feel like
Yeah.
branding, a lot of the times, is where a lot of businesses get wrong, because the brand is actually your character, right?
Yes.
And and I love to study businesses that went huge and then just crashed. And a lot of the times, it's one thing: it wasn't authentic, and the consumer figured it out later down the line, or
Yes.
you didn't have integrity and the consumer figured it out later down the line. And so I realized that the best way for you to build a business is you must be authentic, and that means that it's constant reflection, constant honesty, constant, like, you have to also be as open as a book, so that when you are going wrong, people can tell you. And
Yeah.
I find that that's a real motivation, and it's quite a gift.
And I think that is very, very insightful, because I mean, everybody knows that, but most people don't reach that point where they actually admit to themselves that, I mean, this is the reason, because businesses are failing. So
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, Violet. Maybe let me ask you about the future of Skin Gourmet. I mean, are you innovating
Yeah.
upon new products? Are you adding to your product lines? Anything in the pipeline going forward?
There's always something that, like, my team are always like about to strangle me. They're like, oh, another one. I'm like, I know. But the thing is, every time I find another opportunity in Ghana, another community that makes something we may have forgotten, by the grace of God, I am very good with getting ideas for products. But I think right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize the scale of our impact, right? So as much as you want to keep developing and helping these communities, how can we do it in a way that, number one, is sustainable and gets the
Mhm.
most impact as possible? So I'm trying to join a couple of accelerated programs to
Mhm.
understand proper impact metrics, how to make the most impact at scale, essentially. And that's what I guess I'm really struggling at, and I really need help with, because before it's kind of like doing everything. You do it with your heart, yeah, but you're not measuring
Yeah.
it, Violet. That doesn't mean anything to anybody. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing I realized, like, people need numbers. It doesn't mean anything. But also I need numbers, because then you're not sure which action had the most of
Yes.
the results wanted. Yeah, so
Yeah.
for me now, it's just, okay, great, we have the formula, great, we have the brand, but how do we become as effective as possible, so that not only are we successful, but how can we do it so that other people can replicate it,
Yeah.
so that we can be successful as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that makes a lot of sense because I mean, the more experience you have, ultimately you realize that there must be some trigger points that makes it repeatable. Which are those trigger points?
Yes,
And I think measurement is the only way in which you can see that happening.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. And also, if you want to convince people to follow your example of impact and sustainability, you need to
yeah,
convince them that it's profitable. I mean, you could say it, but if you tell them, actually, if you do it this way, which is good, you're going to make more money, more people will be like, okay. So I have to figure out what those things are and then communicate it effectively so that they want to replicate it. And I think a lot of people would say that it sounds strange, because it's almost like you are creating your own competition, but I don't think so. I think if we all really truly have good intentions, then even your competition, it's good competition, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be able to succeed.
yeah,
But then also, you think about the fact that I have, what, 150 years to live. So I might as well replicate it, so that when I'm gone, the impact is still happening, and then we can get like countries like Ghana, countries throughout Africa, out of the place that we're at.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's a very wholesome mindset. So, I mean, you did spark off a topic of interest in my mind, which is about competition, which is about creating your
Yes.
own competition, right?
Yeah.
Now, in cosmetic space, IP plays a key role. Patents, trademarks, trade secrets. I mean, these
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
play a key role. Uh, do you think
Mm-hmm.
that is going to become important as you scale? Because I mean, it's not just about Ghana. I mean, people from other parts of the
Yeah.
world will also want to have the good things that you're doing, and
Yeah.
that in turn may result in somebody trying to copy it without your approval, so on and so forth. So,
See, that's the why I said to you that the hardest part. This is my experience. Maybe no one has to agree with me, but the hardest part is the one thing that cannot be replicated or duplicated unless it is true, and that's the
yeah,
brand. And to be authentic, number one, if you even know what you are, and to actually be that thing, consumers don't buy products. They buy relationships. They buy things that make them feel a particular way. That's the type of target audience that we want. And so that person is not buying it because of the label you put on. They're buying it
yeah,
because of the story behind it, because of what it means, what it stands for, and that's the brand. So IP is very important, because people just start copying it, but in that one, you have to fight. But of course, we have our trademarks down. But first, you need somebody to even want to copy you. Why would they want to copy you? Because people are buying your brand. Why are they buying your brand? So right now, I just want to focus on, let me get the brand there. Then you may want to imitate the brand. And then you realize that we're so well backed up legally that it's not worth it. So why don't you try it your own way and build your own authentic brand?
yeah. So, Violet, I was very curious about this. So, I mean, talking to you, I mean, I figured out that IP comes later. It's your brand, your image, your story. That is the real IP, and that is the real selling point. People buy from people,
Yes.
right? I may talk
Yeah.
about some good things which you may like, but if you don't like me, you will not buy it, right? I mean, because you will not
That,
feel I'm
yeah.
authentic, so on and so forth. I mean, so you have had a lot of time to reflect. You have had a lot of circumstances in which you had to reflect to make this business grow, to make it a giving business rather than simply taking business. But what about the people who work with you? I mean, has it been
Ah.
difficult to pass on your vision to them? And how do you do that if you have been successful?
Again, that's the thing, right? People don't go by what you say. And one
Yeah.
thing I learned in Ghana, especially, and I also learned this from Africa's Business Heroes. So we actually, when I was Africa's Business Heroes, we went to visit the Alibaba group. And I
Uh-huh.
feel like I'm one of the weakest entrepreneurs. Like compared to other people in my cohort, like these are monsters, beasts, you know? And I was so happy because this huge organization, Jack Ma was saying that it's knitted together by love. And when you say love, it always sounds like such a gushy word. Ah, love. No, but really, when I found like that the same concept of people over profit also it also works with your company culture, because at the end of the day people are working, but they work in order to sustain their life. So if you're not adding value beyond the paycheck and you're just giving them more problems, then they're not going to buy into your dream. Because why should I help you when really I came to help me? You have to help them and solve most of their problems. Then they can say, okay, this thing that's solving my problems, it's my problem to solve, because if this thing is not there, I also lose value in my life. So
Yes.
again, it's the same thing about putting people first, listening to them, understanding them. And then also the great thing I found is that like I said, I traveled a lot and I came back home. As much as I studied all these great programs abroad, which was great, you're coming to apply this in Africa, Ghana. It's a completely different format. And so you have to
Absolutely.
realize that the people that you're working with are going to give you some really good insights and help you actually understand the landscape which you're working. But it's a
Yeah.
partnership. It's not a master servant relationship. We're all colleagues. We all have one goal. We all have the same problems to solve. So if as long as we're able to communicate that, and they're also able to communicate what their issues are, and we're on the same page, it's much easier for us to get together as a team to work together in one direction. But another thing I found is if you are concerned more about profitability, and that profitability is not shared equally, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you have a big gap between
Yeah.
yourself and who you're working with. Trust me, ain't nobody gonna buy your dream because this is only blessing you. It has to be something that blesses everyone else, and everyone can see that, okay, if this moves forward, I move forward. So therefore, I'm in on this because it's for me.
Wow. That makes sense. And I mean, did anyone suggest to you that you should also be a motivational speaker?
Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's really nice.
Well, I feel motivated. I feel happy talking to you. And maybe, I mean, that's what
I'm, I'm
the
happy to hear
consumers
that.
also feel. Yeah. I think the consumers hear that in your brand. I mean, that's what you're trying to build,
I
I
hope
think, but you're
so.
already there to some extent. And that shows in the sold out label on your website. So,
Thank you. We're actually going to redesign our website, so keep an eye out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so I talk to a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs, uh, but by far your copywriting is one of the best. I mean, it is
Oh,
very
thank
authentic.
you.
Yeah, yeah. But cool. I think I learned a lot while talking to you. Maybe I mean all the questions that I had were very corporate in nature. But when I hear you, I think I mean I will get I somewhere in this podcast, somewhere in this conversation, you have already answered most of the question. I think it's the things that makes you authentic. You stick to it, and all the next steps are, I think, enabled by all of these things, right? And that's
Yes.
the real motto. That's the real learning that I took from this conversation. So what's in the future? What are the two things that you're focusing right now? Of course, authenticity is omnipotent
Yes.
as a mission for you guys.
Yes.
But what
Two
are the
things:
next things
scale
here?
and impact. Scale
Got
and
it.
impact. So, how can we, when I say scale and impact, most people think scale is like how to make the company big. No, it's how to make our impact big. Not necessarily the growth comes with that, but I think the main and most important thing is how do we scale the impact that we're making.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I mean, this question came out of curiosity. I mean, which market do you consider to be more friendly to the innovations that you have done? Is it the North American side of things, or is it the European side of things?
I think that's a very interesting question, because in terms of profitability, straight up profitability is the USA, because they have a big community that's into natural skincare. But if you're talking
Yeah,
about those are actual customers that are at par with us and are feeling and want to make an impact and sustainability, that's Europe. So those are the two markets that we're looking at. But United States is one that we would really like to enter really well, because if you want to make scale, you need the money. So I think that would be one that would be really great. So the USA and then Europe.
yeah. But I mean, the reason I asked that question was because I mean, in Europe, somebody told me again, a skincare founder, brand founder, told me that Europe has banned 1,400 ingredients in cosmetics that should not be
Yes.
included, while United States has
Yes.
banned less than 30 or less than 50. So I think
Yeah.
the vision,
That's
the
the
type of
beautiful
raw
thing about it,
materials, the
right?
type of product that they're making. Yeah,
Yeah, but you see, that's why, and that's why people don't understand. Our skincare is so safe you can eat it. I promise you, there is no ingredient that they have banned that's in our products. Our products are 7 ingredients or less. Most ingredients are edible. We use absolutely no chemicals, and I think that's also what helps with our strategy. Is that it's very easy for us to enter any market because we have already ensured that we pass as food grade.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Good. Then I'm out of questions, and let me ask you this: is there any other question that I should be asking you which I'm not aware of?
Blink. I don't think so. I think I think we had a great conversation in general. I
I
think
enjoyed
if
it.
if you come up with one later, do let me know. But I think we had a great conversation. I actually enjoyed speaking to
Same here, Violet. I think
you.
so this is the end of my day, and I'm going to go home happy.
Okay.
So that's the takeaway for
No,
me.
this is the middle of my day, so I'm sorry about all the noise and all the cutting. Like we're doing 1,000 things here at the same time. But thank you so much for the opportunity, and I really really enjoyed this conversation, and I can't wait to see what comes out.
Absolutely, Violet. Thank you very much.